Hi, welcome to Beef Cattle Institute's Ask the Experts, where our experts will answer your questions. I'm Brad White, and with me today is Dr. Bob Larson
Hello, Brad.
and Dr. Philip Lancaster.
Hello, Brad.
On BCI Ask the Experts, we find the right experts to answer your beef production questions. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, you can send us an email at bci@ksu.edu with BCI Ask the Experts in the subject line. Our formats, I'll ask each expert the same listener question, and they have a chance to respond, and to respond to each other as well. Each response will receive points with a maximum of 10 points available. So let's get started with today's question. This question is from a listener that asks, I have a bull from our spring calving herd that we have just weaned the calves, and as I remove the bull from the herd, he looks relatively thin. I need him to breed again in the spring. What advice do you have? Bob, I'm going to start with you.
All right. Well, I'm gonna focus on some of the health aspects, and let's make sure that this bull regains some body condition between now and spring. But we've got time, so that's not a real urgent thing. But some of the things that I am concerned about in a bull that's kind of thin is he getting enough vitamin A, particularly as we move into using dormant forages, and for mature bulls, feet and legs are important problems that can keep a bull from really regenerating and being ready for the spring breeding season. So make sure feet and legs are good, make sure nutrition is good, and we will want to do a breeding soundness exam come spring, but probably don't need to do that right now.
Excellent. Philip?
Well, I think the first question is how thin. If he's a body condition score 5, he needs to be a 6 come next spring for breeding season. He's probably going to be able to gain that through the winter on forage alone, as long as it's decent quality forage, and he'll be good. If he's, say, a 4, we're down to body condition score 4, you may want to either feed him a higher quality forage to get him to gain that, or maybe need to supplement him a little bit with a little bit of something like soy hulls or distiller's grains, a high fiber type of with a high energy, high digestibility feed.
Excellent. So Philip asked a great follow-up question, and how thin is the bull? And I'm going to give Philip a couple more points for that because he's following up, making some distinctions on what he's going to do based on how thin. But Bob, you brought up some good points about what are some of the health issues with bulls as they come off. So let's take this scenario to the next step, maybe go a little beyond the listener question. As I want to prepare that bull for spring, what things beyond, you mentioned some diet stuff, what things should I put in place now to make sure he's ready to pass his BSE in the spring?
All right. Well, a couple things. I'm going to say something in addition to what Philip said is a common supplement that we have in the southern part of the United States is cottonseed hulls. And as we know, some loads of cottonseed hulls have high levels of gossypol, which can cause some reproductive problems with bulls. We can feed it to bulls as long as either the gossypol level is low, which we may or may not know, or we stop feeding that as the breeding season approaches. So talk to your veterinarian about which supplemental feeds are really okay to use with bulls. And the other thing is housing. And again, we have listeners from all over the country, and the farther north you move, we do run into some cold stress issues and things like bedding, making sure the bulls have good housing, which basically includes bedding. I'm trying to prevent any frostbite to the scrotums, those types of problems that can really negatively affect breeding soundness exam time.
Excellent. Avoid feeds that are toxic and make sure we have good housing. Philip?
Well, I think I'll jump on a couple things Bob said there. One on the cottonseed hulls. If we get a thin bull, cottonseed hulls will be good enough to help maintain a bull that's in good body condition, but the energy value of cottonseed hulls is so poor that they're not going to gain any condition on that. So that's not necessarily a good feed to use in this situation if you get a thin bull. And I think along the other lines that Bob said about the weather, if we're in a situation, sometimes we get where we just throw those bulls into the worst pasture. We don't really think about them through the winter, but making sure that they do have a place to get out of the weather and windbreaks and things like that will help them regain that body condition more efficiently.
Absolutely. So you guys provided some great answers. And in fact, we've got our first tie, but luckily I've got a tie. You each have 9 points.
You're not going to leave us that way.
But I have a tiebreaker. We can't leave it that way. Bob, the tiebreaker goes to you because you made the comeback. Can you spell Gospel?
Oh, Gosse Paul.
I'm not going to accept that. Philip goes away with the win. Thank you for your questions. And as always, you can send us a question at bci@ksu.edu with Ask the Experts in the subject header.